Generation Zero's Tactical Response Update, along with the Tactical Equipment Pack 2 releases tomorrow. And we have some patch notes. For the first time in a long time, we have patch notes early, which I like. Recently, they've been releasing updates and patch notes in tandem, so we see them both at the same time, which is a bit of a shame. It's nice getting those patch notes just a little bit early, even if it's only a few hours, but this time we have them a full day earlier than the actual release. Now, the release is 10 AM tomorrow, so the 25th of May, and that is for both the DLC and the Tactical Response Update. If you are a fan of Generation Zero, stick around, subscribe to the channel, drop a like in the video, and do all that good stuff, because we'll be covering the update in full and have a review out later on tomorrow. So, this patch note, there's a good stuff in here, and I'm excited. I am excited for this update. Hopefully, it's going to be good, meet expectations, and have loads of bug fixes. Greetings, survivors. The day has finally come. The Tactical Response Update is almost upon us, releasing at 10 AM tomorrow on the 25th of May. Without further ado, let's get right into the patch notes. First things first is procedural missions. With procedural missions, we're introducing something that we're thrilled about. A way to deliver missions to all players on a weekly basis that, through certain randomized aspects, ensure that no two players will play exactly the same mission, unless you're playing together. It will allow us to expand on this concept and add more mission types to the mix in the future updates, offering both new and experienced players a fresh mission every week. Right now, we're launching this new feature with 3 different missions, one of which will spawn anywhere in the hosting player's world as soon as they start their game. Now, I do think it's a massive shame that they're doing this weekly. Obviously, we were meant to have community assignments, which we're going to be running on a weekly basis. I do think that the procedural missions should be a daily event. Now, how long these missions is going to take, it does say later on in the patch notes, so we will get to that. But first of all, the 3 mission types are an anonymous signal, repair station removal, and Phoenix outpost sabotage. So the anonymous signal is a strange signal has been picked up coming from somewhere on the island. Investigate it. Players find that a malfunctioning machine is calling in beacons. So I'm assuming we're just going to have to find the malfunctioning machine and destroy it. Next up is repair station removal. An old army repair station for the machine prototype field tests has been found. Since this could still be used by the machines to repair and refuel, it's best if it's disabled. There might even be a good stash of resources left there. Finally, Phoenix outpost sabotage. Reports have come in about a new high-value Phoenix outpost being spotted around the island. The outposts are great places to scavenge for resources, but more importantly, sabotaging them will help keep the Phoenix from taking over. Now, that one I do not like the sound of at all. It sounds like for the Phoenix outpost sabotage, they're going to already be utilizing the current outpost system that we have in the game. So an outpost that you've got that's already up there, you're going to have to go and destroy it to complete that weekly mission, which is a shame. I don't like that, mainly because some people like to collect their outposts, and if you're going for a higher region score, once you've destroyed that outpost, you will bring that score down slightly. So I don't know if that's exactly what it is, but it does sound like that's going to be what's happening. Now, they've said here that these individual missions will take between 10 and 20 minutes to complete and offer a reward in the form of some sweet loot. Now, I don't know what the reward pool is going to be for these, whether it's going to be weapons, materials, ammunition, or a mixture of all 3. Hopefully, it'll be a mixture of all 3, potentially even some schematics thrown in there too for the clothing. I think that would be quite good. Currently, there's a massive amount of schematics, and having more ways to get all of them is just a bonus in my eyes. Next up, we've got the building blocks voiceover. The building blocks mission has been updated with voiceover conversations between Pontus and Tyrese. While the mission remains the same, new players will get to hear new conversations and radio chatter between 2 characters as they work their way through the mission. Now, we'll go over my thoughts on that in just a second. But next up, they go straight in there with Tactical Equipment Pack 2. Now, we've already gone over the Tactical Equipment Pack in a recent video. So if you do want a rundown on exactly what is in that and the pricing, then check the link in the description. But basically, it contains 5 items: the toy car lure, the sensory jammer, the hacking dart, the remote controlled tick, and a portable homing turret. Now, those 5 items come in the Equipment Pack DLC 2, and that will come in at a price of $5.99 US. So over here in the UK, that'll be a little bit cheaper at around about £5. So, providing these things are fun, they're balanced, and enjoyable to use, then I think that is a decent price point. I was hoping they wouldn't go up there to the £8, £9 mark, and they didn't, so that is good. Next up, we've got some quality of life improvements. The Vintovka has been added to the Wolf's loot table as well as the Firebirds, and also there is a new form of bad luck protection to make sure you get it after a certain amount of tries. Happy hunting. The emergency broadcast sound that some TVs make has been adjusted to a quieter sound on a different wavelength to reduce the chance of triggering tinnitus in players. Please let us know if you still experience it in any part of the game so we continue to improve. Next up, we have for performance fixes, and quite a big chunk of them, especially for console players. There's been several improvements that will help alleviate some crashes for some players, especially on older gen consoles. They're currently working on a hotfix that will introduce more crash fixes and performance optimizations for consoles. Let us know your experience as we are adding these changes. So they have done a load of bug fixes too, which is good. A lot of gameplay, mission, UI, VFX, all of that good stuff. So we're going to roll through these relatively quickly. But before we go into the bug fixes, because I know some people may not be too interested in this one, but basically, I feel like, alongside bug fixes, which they could have just put out a hotfix ages ago for all of these bug fixes. I think hotfixes are a great thing, and I don't see why they're not utilizing them more, especially considering the amount of bug fixes that they've got. It feels like this update is potentially just pushing the equipment pack. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully we get in the game and there's a lot more to these procedural missions. But overall, the update really just has procedural missions and a voiceover change, which isn't much, considering we've been waiting for so long. And unfortunately, there's still no news of a roadmap. I would love to have seen something in here about the roadmap, but unfortunately not. So that is a bit of a shame. And I do hope that they're not just pushing the tactical equipment pack, and there's a lot more to these missions, because obviously the Phoenix Outpost Sabotage, as I've said, that does sound like it's just going to be go and attack an outpost, which we've been doing that for months anyway. So we'll see. I'm very excited to try the missions. I think they should have been done on a daily basis rather than weekly, and as long as they continue to frequently, key point there, frequently add something to these, I think that'll be very good, and as long as they continue that based off of player feedback and potentially increase the amount, even if it's every 2 or 3 days, or even, like I say, every day. I think that'd be much better and keep players playing and coming back for more a lot more often. Now let's jump in and have a little bit of a look at these bug fixes. I'm going to roll through these ones pretty quick because there's a decent chunk here. So for crafting, we have materials used for crafting but stored in the plunderer, used to be displayed as available for crafting but couldn't be used until transferred into inventory. Crafting will now automatically access your plunderer storage and use those available resources. The Soviet weapon pack ammo will also now be crafted. Audio, they fixed issues where sometimes wrong ambience or reverb would trigger indoors or underground. Fixed issues where the first shot of an automatic weapon triggered twice. Machines. The Reaper will now properly fight back against Soviet machines, and machines no longer start rapid firing when damaged while in shooting. Next up we have Art. Base Assault. They've fixed collisions on walls with spotlights. For gameplay, control point at Tylervoden control point will no longer reset when launching the game after updating. This will sadly not reinstate already lost bases. They fixed some control points having base defense prompts offset slightly to the left. The building blocks and doing the mission in multiplayer sometimes block the client from claiming their own bases. This is no longer the case. Building blocks no longer auto-completes if the player had good news active before the update. Fixed command centers sometimes being invulnerable during base assault. Fixed clients being able to start base defense missions in someone else's world. And reclaimed arrows now disappear for all players in a lobby. For missions, an invitation mission. Fixed a bug where last objective could disappear from the host's log and the whole mission would disappear for the client. An invitation fixed an issue where the redacted would not appear. And finally, an invitation mission fixed mission progress transferring incorrectly between client and host. For the UI, skins. Sometimes weapon skins preview screen could break if a gun had a non-default mag or barrel installed. Vessel and Warboard was missing the building blocks mission for some players when interacting with it for the first time. Chatbox no longer overlaps with the Warboard UI, and fixed crosshair reappearing when opening the weapon wheel on a bike or bicycle. The Resistance heavy bow charge meter is now visible. DLC showcase updates correctly when navigating the menu, and Tubular Vanity Pack cheer emote no longer shows up twice in the player's menu. Another castle generator button could still be interacted with after turning it on. Now we've got unlimited power. Tactical Equipment Pack. The Molotov Cocktail AoE damage no longer expires before the visual effect ends. And for the world, players can now shoot through the windows of sheds, and fixed mission collision on a part of a wall in Caseberg. For the known issues, there is still a decent chunk, but they're known, which is good, which means hopefully the team are working on them. The game will sometimes crash when firing an experimental AG4 at machines. Using a small EMP cell can rarely break the first-person model. I like the sounds of that, though. That sounds quite cool. For gameplay, the Resistance bow explosive arrows do not deal damage on Phoenix Outpost generators. Host might not see player character in the client when client is running a motorbike. Turrets in Phoenix bases sometimes don't play their explosion effect when being destroyed. Equipment and weapons. Some throwables don't last as long as they should. Reload animation for the Vintovka 1891 in multiplayer is always the full reload one. And UI. UI screens can overlap when pressing multiple buttons at the same time. And bike tutorial message might play for all players in multiplayer instead of just the one triggering it. So that's a decent chunk of bug fixes. Hopefully, there's a lot more coming in future updates and hotfixes. But in the last dev letter and patch notes, they have said they're working on hotfixes, and we never see such a thing. So hopefully we do see more of those coming along the lines, along with more of these procedural missions. I'm very excited to try it tomorrow. I'm very optimistic. Hopefully we see a roadmap soon, along with whatever this new thing is that they're adding to the game, which they are very excited about. I'm excited about this one too. Unfortunately, it is not a DLC or a new island or story missions. So, we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully, it is something very good. For now, though, we'll leave that there, and we will be back tomorrow with some more Generation Zero when we check out the Tactical Equipment DLC and the Tactical Response Update. I've been Wired. You guys have been awesome. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.